Well, hello everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing pretty well. I had a very interesting couple of days from a standpoint of karma ripening on a project I'm doing. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Make the mudra for the mandala offering, please. See if I can do that today. And I can. Nice. Here is the great earth, filled with the smell of incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayame. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, I will reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. Okay. So I like to start class with a few review questions. So if you know the answer, just unmute and speak up. First question. What are the three qualities of a good student? Oh, come on. Somebody did their homework.
The one who pays attention in class. He's open-minded. He or she.
Good. So I heard two. So they're impartial, intelligent, and has high aspirations and determination. Good. Okay, who can give me the three problems of the pot? Come on.
Closed pot, meaning not having an open mind. A dirty pot, meaning the wrong intention. And then a leaky pot, meaning not studying or not like retaining, not practicing, not studying.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Okay, so good. Someone's doing the homework anyway. Okay, today's got lots of lists, and I will send a list to Ale or somebody else. I'll send you the list. It's going to be in English, unfortunately, but I'll send you the list. So just listen. Don't worry about taking down this list of lists. I like lists, so you're just going to have to deal with it. Okay. So today's class is talking about samsara and renunciation. Samsara is defined as the cycle of life, or you could say the cycle of pain, the cycle of suffering. I like to think of it as a cycle of joy. What does this really mean? Is it a place? Is it this world? What is it that we are trying to avoid? Bonka Rinpoche says in the Lamrim Chenmo, renunciation is the desire to get out of samsara. So we need to know what it is if we're going to get out of it. The condition of samsara is having to take on over and over a stream of impure parts which are forced on you by your karma. So the implication here is that you can have pure parts or heaps, and that you can take births that are not forced, but are not forced to do so. So what are the 5 heaps? You hear these often in our practice, so this is a good thing to know. I wasn't going to put it on the list, but I will. The 5 heaps are, the first one's the physical body. The second one is a feeling, mental function, pain, pleasure, or neutral. The third one is discrimination, good or bad. The fourth one are all the other factors that make you up. And the fifth one is the main mind, consciousness. There are 6 types of consciousness that we talk about in Buddhism: the eye, the ear, the nose, taste, touch, and mind. Now we're getting to the core, the foundation of your practice. The foundation, as a Buddhist, you're not supposed to sit there and be mellow when things go bad. Yes, you're not supposed to get angry, but that doesn't mean you don't react. You react with wisdom. Use your knowledge of karma and emptiness to recreate your heaps to pure heaps. Renunciation then means wanting to break free from the samsara condition of having to take on over and over these impure heaps. So, I want to read to you some phrases out of the 3 principal paths that are particularly germane. There's no way to end without pure renunciation, this striving for pleasant results in the ocean of life. It's because of their hankering for life as well that beings are fettered. So seek renunciation first. Leisure and fortune are hard to find. Life's not long. Think it constantly. Stop desire for this life. Think over and over how deeds and their fruits never fail, and the cycle of suffering. Stop desire for the future. When you've meditated thus and feel not even a moment's desire for the good things of cyclic life, and when you begin to think both night and day of achieving freedom, you have found renunciation. So again, this all comes down to how you react, how you're planting seeds constantly. It's like I've said in the past, you've got to get this in your mind. And I have it pretty well in my mind, although there are days when I don't think as hard about it as I should. But the past is your present is your future. You can do nothing about your past, but you can do everything for your future. Really contemplate that. You can do nothing about the past. You have no idea what karma is going to ripen in the next instant. But you do know that if you react poorly, you're going to get more of that in the future. And if you act with wisdom, you're going to get less in the future. So what's been happening to me extraordinarily, it's pretty mundane in many ways, but it's exciting for me. I think I mentioned it last class. I have had the karma ripen now to be finding things for my book project, which is almost done, that I never thought I'd find. And it's coming out of material that I have on my desk and on my bookshelves that I swear I've read and didn't see it. So I have the karma ripening now from helping others get what they want in this life. It's starting to ripen now very quickly for me. So my wife, my lovely wife, asked for something this morning. And I stopped what I was doing. I went and found it and sent it to her with the wisdom of knowing that if I do that, I'm setting the karmic seed for people to respond to my needs. Now, if it ripens in this life, all the better. But it will ripen in future lives because I've done it with wisdom. So renunciation means wanting to break free from this samsara conditions. There's no way to end without pure renunciation. It's because of their hankering for life as well that beings are fettered. So seek renunciation first. Hankering for life. I've been very fortunate, and I took the death meditation course that Geshe Michael offered, a weekend course, which I highly recommend we figure out a time to do. It's just a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think you'd find it very interesting. But that's helped me tremendously in my life after having taken it. It put into perspective what life is. I'm not worried about dying. The David or the Sumati that's here talking will cease to exist. But I won't cease to exist because I'm not David, I'm not Sumati, I'm not George, I'm not Paul. I'm a mind stream that happens to be David or Sumati now. But I have no doubt that I'm going to be reborn somewhere, someplace, sometime, and can continue on with my practice. Leisure and fortune's hard to find. Life's not long. Think it constantly. Stop desire for this life. When you meditated thus and feel not even a moment's desire for the good things of cyclic life, this doesn't mean you can't enjoy ice cream, you can't enjoy a movie, you can't enjoy, well, I enjoy writing these books. It doesn't mean that. It means do all of that with wisdom. Know that how you do it, the mindset of how you do all this is what's creating your future. It's so incredibly simple, and it's so very hard to do. Okay, what else do I want to say about that? Okay, now we're going to go into lists of suffering. So again, if you want to write it down, fine, but I'll send these to you. So there's 3 sufferings. Suffering of pain, suffering of change, and pervasive suffering. Now, I say the pervasive suffering can either be that you're going to die the minute you're born, okay? Or I like for pervasive suffering for me is, as I've mentioned before, you don't know which karma is going to ripen next. Now, I don't consider that to be a suffering in the same sense of thinking you're going to die any day. I look at it as a challenge. So it's a suffering in that I don't know it's going to ripen. And because of that, I can't be prepared to counter a negative or a bad deed easily. I have to be fast on my feet. And that's where a good training in karma and emptiness comes into play, because you know how to react positively with wisdom to any circumstance. So that's the 3 sufferings. The 4 sufferings: birth, old age, sickness, and death. And there's an order to these that's important. Birth, old age. You don't have sickness between birth and old age, because back then, old age meant you would get sick. Now, I've seen people at 95 running and doing all kinds of wonderful stuff. Then there's death. 6th, nothing is fixed. That's number 1. Number 2, you're never satisfied. Number 3, you shed the body over and over. Only your mind goes with you when you die. Being reborn again and again. That's 4. Number 5, there's the high and then the low. That's kind of like the changing, suffering of change. And number 6, that no companion, you die alone. So never satisfied? No, how can I think? I can't really think of one right now. Never satisfied. Never. No, I'm blanking on that. shed body over and over, only your mind goes with you. It's not that you shouldn't take care of your body, but don't go out of your way to be the best looking physical specimen on the planet, because it ain't coming with you. Being reborn again and again, that's kind of covered by that. High then low. Well, it's a good one for that. Well, I'm trying to find someone to write a foreword to my book. And just before class, I took 5 minutes to try and find this guy. And I may have found him. And if he'd write the foreword to my book, that would be extraordinary. So I've got to be ready to accept with wisdom the fact that he may say no. So don't get so excited you found him that you can't accept the no if he says no. He's 85 years old, so he may be in the same shape I'm in. Okay, high then low, no companion, you die alone. The death meditation makes a very strong point of this. In the Western society that I grew up in, there was a phrase that he who dies with the most toys wins. So you'd have a second house, a vacation cabin, a boat, a couple of fancy cars, fancy television, fancy home. You were accumulating the toys. And if you had more than your neighbor, you won when you died. Well, that's about the stupidest thing as a Buddhist that you'd want to do. You'd want to die with very little. Now, that doesn't mean give it all away and move to a cave, but it means think about what you're accumulating. Okay, the 8 sufferings. This is a combination of what we just talked about. Being born, getting old, getting sick, dying, encountering things we do not like, losing things we do like, trying to get things we want but cannot have, take on a mind and body and other parts which must suffer. So encounter things we do not like and react ignorantly. Losing things we do like, we react ignorantly. Trying to get things we want but cannot have, do that ignorantly. Taking on a mind and a body and other parts that must suffer, well, you don't have much choice. When you're born in this world, that's what you got. So the key here is, again, wisdom. The 10 sufferings, this is the last list. These are the 10 sufferings of the human realm. Hunger and thirst. Now that's interesting. When I say my grace at dinner, my grace is something along these lines. May all sentient beings have safe food to eat, a safe place to sleep, and safe water to drink. And you stop and you think about that. I turn a tap on here and I get water I can drink. I turn a tap on in Malaysia and I was encouraged to drink bottled water. I was going somewhere with that. Oh, hunger and thirst. Think about food. I go to my refrigerator. It's fully stocked. I have no trouble getting food. And safe place to sleep. I don't know. I have no way of imagining what it must be like to be a homeless person sleeping under a bridge with 40 other people. That just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Okay, body decays gradually. That's pretty obvious. You're always separated from things you love, especially people. Lately, I've been having people die on me. Not on me, but dying that I know. Next door neighbor, oldest son of the next door neighbor, who I really looked up to in high school and lost contact with. He died in his sleep. He was 70. No, I guess he must have been about 75 because I'm 70 and he was older than me. Things happen you don't like. Things you don't like happen to you. mainly meeting people you don't like, can't get what you want, but things you don't want come to you unexpectedly, having to take birth and getting old, getting sick and having to die. So that's 10. What is it that keeps us in this cycle? We're chained to samsara by the karma of wrong thoughts and ignorant thoughts, chained up in past deeds hard to undo, stuffed in a steel cage of grasping self, smothered in the pitch black ignorance. Points to ponder. We talk about being in the cycle of samsara, but samsara is not a place, it's our nature. We aren't in samsara, we are samsara. And that sounds kind of flaky, maybe new agey, but samsara isn't the world I live in, Earth and this going around the sun, is a manifestation of my samsara, but it isn't samsara. And the clue to that is I may not like what's going on in Ukraine and somebody else may love it. So my samsara and their samsara aren't the earth, it's my projections. Point to ponder. The kaleidoscope, I like to think of it as a kaleidoscope. You know, everybody knows what a kaleidoscope is, right? Well, I can't see everybody, but I'm assuming. You know, it's that tube with cut glass in it and you rotate it and different colors come all over. My lovely wife loves kaleidoscope, but she doesn't want a collection of them. Come to think of it, that wouldn't be a bad birthday surprise gift. Anyway, it's a kaleidoscope. Karma, the kaleidoscope of our karma ripening is what our world is. Because in any given minute, any given second, 65 times a second, karma is ripening. My karma is ripening, my projections are ripening to create my world. So if that's where my world's coming from, I can do something about it. What can I do? I can watch the movement of my mind, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. So what is karma? Everybody talks about it being good and bad deeds, good and bad karma. Karma is just simple, as I've said before, and I'll keep saying. Karma is movement of the mind. So the fact that I don't get mad at my lovely wife anymore doesn't make me, how can I put it? Doesn't mean I don't get mad. I'm just not getting mad at her. I'm getting mad at me. But getting mad at me is still getting mad. It's still a movement of the mind. It's still setting seeds for having angry people in the future. So I try hard. I'm trying hard. I'm getting better at it. But with Parkinson's, it can get very frustrating very quickly. So now we're going to do the pen. I'm not sure how many of you have heard the pen, but here goes. So what am I holding up here? That's a pen, right? Okay. Now, think of this. If this is a pen and a dog came in the room and found it on the floor, what would they do with it? The dogs I know would chew on it, make a mess, break it open, ink would be everywhere. The thing they wouldn't do is write with it. So, if this pen is truly self-existently, without any interaction with me, is a pen, a dog should be able to pick, wouldn't chew on it, wouldn't necessarily pick it up, but wouldn't chew on it because he knows it's a pen. Geshe says he'd pick it up and write his doggy girlfriend a letter. But that doesn't happen. Because what this is a projection of my karmic deeds from the past ripening and forming this pen in front of me. Now, there's a lot of detail to this that we'll continue to go into, but the point is, nothing in this world is self-existent. So this is not a pen from its own side. It's coming from me. To have it work is my karma ripening for having provided something like this with ink to another person. If you want to go literal, or it's used for communication. So I made it simple for someone to communicate in a past life. So the important thing to realize that everything in your world is coming from your karma and your projections. Every single thing, period. It's not your karma, but it's your karma so. Maybe you've heard the term kalesha, bad thoughts, such as the top 5 mental afflictions. Here's a good list for you. This is a list we go through often, so this is a good one to also remember. Ignorant liking, meaning you'd hurt someone to get what you want. Ignorant disliking would hurt someone to get rid of what you don't want. Ignorance itself, not understanding karma and emptiness. Pride, seeing others as lower than you. Jealousy, you can't stand to see others get what they want. So think about that. Ignorant liking would hurt someone to get what you want. I don't think many of us, if we're even beginning to study Buddhism, that we'd be doing that. Ignorant disliking would hurt someone to get rid of what you don't want. Nah, I don't think so. Maybe as a kid, but as a grown, as an adult, I don't think so. Ignorance, not understanding karma and emptiness. Now, I've been studying karma and emptiness for a long time. I understand it enough to know what I need to do to not have things ripen in my future to the best of my ability. Pride, seeing others as lower than you. My parents were liberal Democrats. They'd be rolling over in their graves if they were alive now, but that's another story. So I was taught as a young man, as a kid, to treat all others equally. Knowing I wasn't better or worse. But here's the interesting thing. Later in life, my parents became very snobbish. Okay, bye, Cornelia. Very snobbish. And they would make the distinction between someone who'd gone to university and had a PhD and those that didn't. And they got really snobby about it. It was very disappointing to me. My mom got very embarrassed with my dad because they would go on these elder hostel trips with people of their own age all over the world. They went everywhere. They went to Antarctica, something I'd like to do, but probably never will. But my dad would always say that he was a plant biochemist from the University of California at Davis, as if anybody cared. I have a PhD in biochemistry from University of Wisconsin. I could put that on the title page of my books, but I don't, because I don't have a PhD in history. I have a PhD in biochemistry. And what's a PhD anyway? Doesn't mean having one's not a good thing. Just means not everybody needs one to succeed in life, and that's okay. My parents actually, much to my amazement, when I was getting ready to apply to grad school, my mom took me aside one day and said, David, your father and I don't think you're cut out to go to graduate school. We don't think you're smart enough. So maybe reconsider applying. I mean, how defeating can that be for a kid? I was 18, 19 years old. No, I was 20, 22, 23. And to have my parents say that was, I immediately said, oh yeah, watch. So I got accepted to one of the top 5 schools in the country and got a PhD in the same field my father had. That's a whole nother story. So where am I going with this? Seeing others as lower than you. I know some really smart people that didn't finish high school that I envy for their incredible knowledge of how the world works and their ability to build and repair things. I've always maintained that as long as you do the best you can do in a job, well, here's a good story. This is actually a great story. Well, most of my stories are great, but this one's in particularly great. So Lake Tahoe is a big fancy lake resort area in Northern California. We had a cabin up on hills overlooking it. And my dad wanted to build an addition to the cabin. So he's a pretty smart guy. And we had a design and we got the framing started and we had to put up the rafters, the roof rafters, and they had to meet at a certain angle at the peak. And he went through about 10 pieces of wood trying to get it to work, and he couldn't get it to work. And we had to drive like 45 minutes to get the wood. So my mom wasn't thrilled. So she went down to get more wood and ran into the carpenters that had built our house in Davis, where I grew up. So she asked them to come up, and they came up and immediately set up shop and were starting to cut lumber, and they cut through their power cord. I remember clearly my dad rolling his eyes and going, what a bunch of yahoos. They can't even set up shop and not cut through the power cord. So they fixed it. And then without making a single measurement, they did this by eye. They put all the rafters up for my dad in about, well, it seemed like instantaneously. But that's when I decided that if you do your job well, like they did by eye, then you're a professional worthy of my respect, whether you've been to graduate school or not, whether you've been to law school or not. My lesson in pride, jealousy, can't stand the things, see others get what they want. I'm trying to think of where I would have had jealousy. Well, Geshe Michael used to do something to me quite often. Well, it seemed like he was doing it to me. In class, we were about 120 students at one point at Time Mountain University. And he said something that I had said, used a quote. What was the quote? How can I, in my copious quantities of spare time, how can I help you? I thought that was pretty funny. I liked the way it sounded. So one day in class, he looked at another student and said, and Ted came up with this phrase I really like, copious quantities of spare time. And he was looking directly at me. And my response wasn't like, what? I just smiled. Didn't matter to me who he thought it up. It was a test from my Lama to me to see if I was going to get jealous and go, what? I thought that up. So I passed that test. And he would do that often. So, okay, so you're disliking, ignorance, pride, and jealousy. Chained up by bad thoughts, deeds hard to undo, means the deeds done as a result of our mental afflictions, circumstances become the causes for our future circumstances. So our past is our present is our future, period. Think that over and over again. Live by that. How do we stop the cycle? We must see how it works and stop it. Renunciation, the real definition, is recognizing how trapped you are in the cycle and seeing that it is all suffering. I repeat that. The real definition of renunciation is recognizing how trapped you are in this cycle and seeing that it's all suffering. Once you see this, you see that others are in the same condition, just wishing to help others to get food or clothing is not enough. It's a good start. It's a necessary start. But in order to free them from this cycle, you've got to reach Buddhahood. You've got to become a bodhisattva. And you have bodhicitta in your heart. We'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a whole series of courses on it. How to begin this process? Well, there are 2 steps on the path which lead you to stopping your desire for the suffering life. Contemplate the difficulty of finding leisure and fortune that allows you to study and practice the Dharma. Good fortunes. There are 2 groups of 5 good fortunes that relate to ourselves and those that relate to others. So the first 5 are personal. These are the good fortunes we have in this life and why we shouldn't waste it. We're born as a human. We're born in a central land where people keep the traditional vows of morality. We're born with all of our faculties intact. We haven't committed the 5 heinous misdeeds. And we have faith in the teachings. Those are good fortunes relating to me personally, or you personally. The second 5 qualities are those that relate to others, or the outside world. We live in a world where a Buddha has come, where his or her teachings have been spoken, where the teachings have spoken have not been lost, where people still practice them, and where practitioners enjoy the kind of support they require. So let's go through those again. The personal good fortune, born as a human, we can study the Dharma. Born in a central land where people are keeping the traditional vows of morality, that means we aren't fighting constantly to get what we need because we don't have to worry about people stealing it. To be born with one's faculties intact. My memory's starting to go slowly but surely. Even in class, I sometimes pause and try and remember what my train of thought was. That didn't used to happen. I've not committed the 5 heinous crimes. Well, I haven't done that. And have faith in the teachings. I do. I believe these teachings are what's keeping me going. The outside world, we live in a world where Buddha has come, where his teachings have been spoken, and in our joy recorded and digitized and made available for everybody, where the teachings spoken have not been lost, where people still practice them, and where practitioners enjoy the kind of support they require. These are really rare when you think about how many beings have not met the Dharma or have and are not interested. We are really lucky. Don't kid yourself. What are the chances of getting a precious human rebirth again and able to study the Dharma? Master Shantideva has a quote, has a stanza about this. For the very reasons the Buddha has said, that as hard as it is for a turtle to insert its neck into a yoke adrift upon the vast ocean, is extremely hard to find the human state. So what that means is there's this golden ring. I'm not sure how gold's floating in the water, but it's floating in the water in this vast ocean. And there's one turtle. What are the chances of this turtle surfacing and finding and putting his or her neck through this golden ring in this vast ocean? Minuscule. That's the kind of chance we have to be reborn as a human. So we have been. So we need to make best use of our time. what are the chances I'll be able to study the Dharma tomorrow or next year? This time last year, I really didn't know how much longer I had to live. I wasn't getting upset about it, but my wife, lovely wife, and I were trying to get together what we call my wish list, so that when I was in bed and couldn't do much, she could play music or play the recordings of the teachings for me. And then I got better and we put that aside. Gotta not do that. Death meditation says I can't, I shouldn't do that. We contemplate this every day as we go through the trials and tribulations of our lives. What is important to us? Why is it important? Is it the best thing we could be doing? Well, I've had that quandary. I enjoy writing these books. It keeps me engaged. I like looking for the detail that no one else has found yet. And I'm reasonably good at it. So, is writing books about nuclear weapon systems a frivolous use of this life? I think if I was completely honest with myself, I'd have to say it's not the most important thing I could be doing. On the other hand, I'm putting together history that thanks a lot of people for work they did to protect our country and the other people's countries. So from that standpoint, I do think I'm doing something positive and powerful. I do look forward to when this book is finished, which should hopefully be in the next month, to devote my time for my pet project, which is the Tibetan Book of Lists. But we'll talk about that some other time. The point is to think about it, decide for yourself. You need to relax, you need to play, which this can't be the focus of this precious human life. So you think about the good fortunes we discussed, contemplate the inevitability of your death, the uncertainty of the time of death. Usually this sets in as we get old and our friends around us die. Unfortunately, it's a bit late to get started in your practice. I am just so overjoyed when I have students that are 20, 25 years old and they're starting their Dharma career. I started my Dharma career in 1998, so I was 45. What I'd give to have those other 20 years. But was I ready for it? Was it available to the extent that it is now? We lived in Madison, Wisconsin for 4.5 years and knew nothing about Deer Park or Geshe Sopa, not Zopa. Sopa had his Dharma Center. We were probably 15 miles away from a very realized being, and we knew nothing about it. Okay. Desires. So now we can divide our desires into this life and what will happen in a future life. Now you know the karma from past deeds has resulted in this life. You know you can shape your future lives by what you do now, how you react now. Don't quit your job or give away everything prematurely or ignorantly. Becoming a homeless person, Geshe made it very clear when we started Diamond Mountain. He said, we need volunteers. But what we don't need is somebody to show up and say, hi, I'm here to volunteer. Can you put me up? Can you give me room and board and shelter and food? We didn't have the capacity to do that. So instead he said, if you want to come to Diamond Mountain to work, to volunteer, to live, start first by moving to Tucson. Get a job, save your money, come on weekends or every other weekend. It's 2 hours away versus if you lived in New York, many, many more hours, much more expensive. Then if you like what you see in Diamond Mountain, move to Wilcox or Benson, a town that's about only an hour, 30 minutes to an hour away. Then if you don't like what you see, because you're seeing it more often, then you still got a decent job in Wilcox or Benson, and you can go on from there. If you do like what you see, then save your money, come to Diamond Mountain, bring your own tent, build your own house, take care of yourself while you're helping Diamond Mountain. Instead of dropping what you're doing, showing up on the doorstep and going, hi, I need somewhere to sleep, I need some food to eat, but I'd like to volunteer. Okay. So here are some guidelines. The 8 worldly thoughts. I'll finish class with this. The 8 worldly thoughts. This is something you need to know in order. 1, being happy when you get something. Number 2, being unhappy when you don't. So these are gains and losses. Being happy when you feel good. Being unhappy when you don't feel good. Being happy when you're well known. Being unhappy when you're not well known. Being unhappy when others say nice things about you. Being unhappy when they don't. You know, we have, my wife, lovely wife, and I have kind of, I never thought I'd be in this situation, but it's an interesting thing for me. My lovely wife and I lived at Diamond Mountain for many years and were involved from the very beginning in developing it for Geshe Michael and Lama Christie. I put in about 4 miles of water system. No idea how to do that, but I learned how to do it, and it's worked very well. I helped run the place for many years. So the point is, when you come to meetings now, used to be they'd mention somebody, they'd say, well, David and Susan are here and they did a great job helping build Diamond Mountain. And we get a round of applause and that'd be great. So we were quote unquote famous. Now we can walk into a group of people at Diamond Mountain and they have no idea who we are. And that used to bother me a little bit because it was kind of fun to know, you're David. Wow, you did this, you did that. But now it's like, who built that house up on the hill? That's really cool. Well, we did. So I'm experiencing this a little bit myself. Happy when you get something, when you're well known, unhappy when you're not well known. So another way of looking at this is gain, happy when you get what you want. The loss is being unhappy when you don't get what you want. Pleasure, happy when you feel good, pain when you don't. Fame when you're well known, notoriety when known for something you did wrong. Praise, speak well of you. Blame, unhappy when you're criticized. Can we really avoid these 8 worldly thoughts easily? We experience these all the time, hence the term 8 worldly thoughts. We get giddy when we get something thinking it will make us truly happy. We become unhappy when that same thing breaks. We are really happy when we feel good. We're very unhappy when we get cold or get ill. We are happy when somebody recognizes something we've done. We get upset if we go somewhere and no one notices us. We feel good when we hear nice things about ourselves. We feel bad when someone says something bad about us. So if you're completely honest with yourself, the 8 worldly thoughts are something to confront and to work on, because it's your reaction to the 8 worldly thoughts with ignorance that's perpetuating your samsaric existence. Now you say to yourself, so I practice all this, how quickly can I get out of samsara? Well, if you're like me, you've got eons of lifetimes of things ripening that are keeping you in samsara. That's where Tantra comes in practice. The practice of Tantra done properly, which is hard to do, we can speed things, the term is can, speed things up considerably. So your meditation for the next 3 days before Thursday is for Thursday is to meditate on the 8 worldly thoughts and how they feature in your life. And be honest, really think about it. Okay, let's dedicate class. So thank you for the chance to teach you this material. I will get this list out to you. To try to get it out in the next half an hour. By the goodness of what I've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Okay. Elena, I don't know if you had asked about the book. If you'll stay on for just a minute, we'll talk about getting you more information about that. Otherwise, so can we keep the connection open for just a little bit after class? Okay. Bye, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. I'll be right back. Okay. So Mike's still here. Is Elena still? Svetlana, does she stay? Okay. Okay, what can I do to help you? Can she not hear me?
Can I ask Svetlana, you can translate, please, if you will translate, change your channel, you have option Russian to English, okay? And dear Sumati, please change your channel for English channel, not general channel, you need English channel.
Me?
English language.
Wow.
And English channel you need. Original audio, English and Russian. You need change to English.
Where do I do that?
Okay. It's
Interpretation?
global, do you see? Maybe global, yes, interpretation, where original
English.
audio, English, yes, please check English.
Okay.
And Ekaterina can speak Russian and Svetlana can translate.
Oh, okay, I see. I needed to get to this. Okay, got it. Okay, fire away. Thank you.
могу задать вопрос? Я просто говорили, да. Хорошо. Тот вопрос, который у меня есть, он не относится напрямую к курсу. Мне его задать.
I have a question. Oh, yes, I have a question which does not correspond directly to the course. May I ask that question?
Sure. I thought we were going to talk about keeping the book, but go ahead. Yes, whatever you'd like.
Тот вопрос, про который я думаю, у меня есть понимание, почему, что есть причины и следствия, и понятно, что были прошлые жизни, есть будущие жизни. Но очень сложно понять, как это, когда не было начала. То есть логически я понимаю, что не было начала, потому что тогда должно было быть что-то первое, но осознать, как это не укладывается в голове, если помочь с этим.
Yes. My question relates to that. I'm trying to understand that there are causes and consequences, but I can't comprehend how there was no any beginning. It's difficult for me to understand how there was no the beginning. There was no start something.
Oh, beginning is okay. So you don't understand the beginningless, endless end. Okay. Well, that's a tough question. So it's easy to be confused. I will admit that I stopped thinking about there being no beginning and no end because in my day-to-day life, it didn't matter to me. I'm not saying it shouldn't matter to you, but I don't understand. All I understand is it can be beginningless, because if it isn't beginningless, it had to start somewhere. If it had to start somewhere, that had to start somewhere, and that had to start somewhere, and that had to start somewhere. So that goes on infinitely in the past and infinitely in the future. And that's just something when I die, I may find out about it. And if I do, I'll let you know. So it's not much help. I'm sorry, but that's just one of the conundrums of being a human. What do you think about it? Do you think about it at all, or does it bother? Does it worry you?
Не то, чтобы это очень меня беспокоит, но это тот вопрос, который долго лежит на полочке. И когда вы говорили, что можно какой-то вопрос задать, он пришел на голову. Я благодарю за ответ.
Yeah, it's not something what is bothering me, but that was a question which was on a shelf in my mind. So when it was asked to ask any question, I decided to ask this particular question.
Excellent. The key to me with beginningless time and endless time is the fact that past and future lives. You have to believe in past and future lives in order to be a Buddhist and practice properly, because otherwise it doesn't matter what you do and you can live a very immoral life. So beginningless time means to me, I've had countless lifetimes to generate the karma, to experience all the things that I've experienced. And I'll have countless future years and lifetimes. And because they're countless in either direction, that means I need to get my act together now so my countless future lives are as pleasant as possible. And it bring me to the state of total enlightenment so I can help other beings. Now you have to keep, this is going to be a little bit hard maybe to grasp because I'm still working on it. But all the suffering in this world is coming from me. The suffering in Ukraine is coming from me. I am responsible for that in some form. So because I don't want that to happen anymore, I have to do deeds now directly related or indirectly related to stop seeing that conflict, stop seeing people feel it's necessary to kill each other. It's not Ukraine's fault. It's not Russia's fault. It's my fault. Now I can go and bury myself in the sand and ignore it, or I can try to do my best to help other people get along. And you could say, well, that's silly. How will that make a difference? Well, my challenge to them would say, try it. What's the harm in trying it? You're only doing good. And it's better than trying to cause more grief. Now there's the practical and the impractical. The practical part of the war in Ukraine is, unfortunately, someone's got to win. And that's the sad part, because neither side wants to let the other side win. It's very complex, and it saddens me greatly. I wish there was something, I wish I could reach out and slap both of those leaders in the head and say, get a grip and try and save your country from falling to complete anarchy. But I don't have the power to do that yet. So good. Shelve a question, and when it comes up, please feel free to ask me, and I'll try and give you the best answer I can or point you in the right direction. But I'm really proud of you for coming up with this question and for putting it on the back burner on the shelf and bringing it forward. That's what I'm here for. So, Svetlana, did Elena not stick around?
Yeah, I don't know. I typed personal message to Elena, but she didn't reply. So
Well,
I'm not sure.
Maybe next class. So where do I send the list? Do I send that to Ale for her to circulate? Okay, I'll take care of that right now. Katerina, thank you very much for, well, goodbye. There you are. Bye-bye. Okay,
Could I ask a question before we go?
Sure, Mike. Fire
Okay,
away.
sorry.
That's all right.
So I learned the refuge and the wish
Yeah.
in English and in Tibetan.
No, good for you.
And I learned the dedication in English and Tibetan. And I'm wondering the second word of the dedication in Tibetan. It's Diyi, or is it pronounced Diyi or Deyi? It's Gewa Deyi Kaiwa
Gewa di Kewu Kun Sunam Yeshe Zokso Shin. So Gewa di, not
D.
day.
Okay, so it's kind of like DEE instead of like DIYI.
Yeah, Gewa di, yeah, DEE would be the better alliteration in English. Of course, you're
Okay.
talking to someone who barely can speak Tibetan, but now you've admitted to doing this. Now you can lead the opening of class prayers.
Okay.
No,
I got it down.
good.
is there anywhere that like for Tibetan, like I, is it just looking over the Tibetan track for each class, like the best way to study? Is there like other groups for Tibetan studying?
Ask LA. I should know that and I don't. There's a translator course, but that's pretty advanced. They're always looking for new translators. So you could do that, but email LA and ask her what would be the best thing to do in terms of getting into a study group for Tibetan.
Okay.
But,
And then as far as like teacher trainings and stuff like that, is there anything that you would recommend doing like as I go through the first 18 courses to like prepare for that, or is that something that can be done during the courses?
what I would do, what we did, my wife and I did, was we didn't rely on the student notes to follow class, because in theory, you don't get the student notes until after class. So instead of saying, well, I don't need to take notes because I'm getting the student notes, we had the student notes because we got everything at once in a big box of books. So we didn't look at them until after class. We took our own notes and those became the source notes for my teaching. So I would encourage you to listen to class, look at the student notes, see what you think's important, see how it could be explained, and this is a good time for you to ask further questions, so your notes are complete. And then when someone says, hey, Mike, could you teach course 1? You don't have to go, now what? You've got teaching notes ready to go.
Right.
So that's what I would suggest. And I'm glad to hear you thinking that, because we need more and more teachers, and some of us aren't getting any younger. So our teaching years are not that many ahead of us. There is one point that I'll bring up next class. When you do the refuge prayer, there are 3 different words you use depending on whether you're the student, a teacher, or you're taking a teaching. So I'll discuss that next class. I was thinking of doing that, and now that you're going to start doing, I hope that you don't mind my asking you to do that.
No.
That's beautiful seeds for you in Tibetan. So, okay.
And you said there's 3 types of the refuge and the wish.
There's 3 words that differ in it. Let me, if you've got a minute.
Is it in the last sentence? Because I always like I'll hear no, what was it? Like Gipe is changed to something else. And it was like confusing me.
Yeah, let me just give me a minute here. I'll get to my database and I will look that up, because I think that's an important thing to catch right now. Okay, Dharma. Come on. Dharma, there we go. I think it's under, well, it could be under materials. Existing thing. I have to remember what refuge, here it is. Oh, good, I'm not losing my mind. Okay, 3rd line. Daki Jinsok, by my giving in the rest. Daki Chunyen, by my listening to the Dharma. And Daki Chushe, when we are giving teachings. So if I remembered, I would say Daki Chushe when I'm taking refuge in front of you, because I'm giving the teaching. In personal practice at your altar in the morning, you'd say Daki Jinsok. When attending teachings, you would say Daki Chunyan.
Right. So when I say it, I would say Daki Chunyan Jinsok. Wait,
You-
Daki Chunyan
right,
Gipe Sunam Ki.
right. When you're doing it for our class, you're attending a teaching, so you would say Daki Chunyan.
Chunyan. Chunyen.
CHU, new word, NYEN.
Chunyan.
I'm going to send this to everybody as well. Because that used to confuse me. I'd hear Geshe say something or the student leading the chant. And I'd go, that's not what's in there.
Yeah, because that was the same thing. I was listening to I don't know if it was Lojong or Tonglen. It was one of the daily practices, and they're doing like the chanting in the beginning, and I'm like, wait, this doesn't sound the same. I'm like, what is that other word?
Yeah, it used to drive me nuts. Okay. Good question. Glad to be of help. Take care, and we'll see you Thursday.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot and taking that on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy
Okay.
to be of
Thank you,
service.
Svetlana. Thank you, Katerina. You're welcome. Thank you for an excellent question. Keep asking them. Okay. Bye-bye.